This is an example of beaded fly stitch, and it's actually beaded closed fly because you're closing each fly stitch in with the following fly stitch. But the stitches are each made as individual stitches. So let's take a look at how to make this. And I start the way I would with a regular fly stitch, coming up on the left, going down opposite where I came up, so now I'm on the right, bringing the needle down at a diagonal. There's my loop, and I'd be getting ready to sink down and make the stem. So right here, I'm going to pick up a bead on my needle. There's the bead, and it's very simple. And notice now I'm sinking the stem down, but the bead is just on there on the thread. It's helpful with beads to come down the way I did with your needle at a 90-degree angle so that it will make the beads stand up as firmly as possible. So here, if I wanted to do my next one, I'd do it just the way I would any fly stitch where I'm stacking them up like a closed fly. That's where the V of the last fly stitch was, so that's a good place to put my needle. Now you'll notice that there's a fair amount of play in how the bead can kind of float around on the little stem here. If you want to, you can make them a lot shorter. You make their stems a lot shorter, so if you want to have these beads anchored down quite a bit, if you do that, then just keep in mind what I call the arms of the fly stitch, then they still have to come up pretty high. Maybe not quite that high, but they have to come up to be opposite where that V is, because you don't want your fly stitches to start flattening out. That's a very common problem with fly stitches. I'll show you what I mean here in a second. And you'll notice when I'm picking up the beads, I find it very handy to have a little tray like this that you can put the beads in. You can sort out the ones you wanted. And then when you're finished, you've got this pointy part. You can just pour it back into your little baggie, whatever container the beads were in. So here we'll sink this one down. Now here's what happens often with fly stitches is people start doing this where they're, instead of coming all the way up opposite, opposite from here, their stitches will start to get flatter and they'll come down like this, and then they kind of lose the Y shape and they wonder, why is this one flatter than the others? And it's because you didn't start your stitch up here. You started the next stitch all the way down here. So it's not going to have a consistent look. Now what I'm using for a needle and thread is that I have a size 11 short darner. You can see that's a Sue Spargo needle that she likes to use for beads. That does go through a size 11 seed bead. And this is it's a 24 weight silk thread, the Soie Perlée. That thread, you can get through this needle. Some people find it a bit challenging. So if you're just having a battle with your needle and thread and the whole process has become unpleasant for you, you can use that same needle with 2 strands of a DMC floss that's in a similar color. And you can also thread that through a size 9 millimeters needle, and that will still go through your beads. You can also use a beading needle, such as a size 10 beading needle, which is really like a fine embroidery needle. What I do is I put the thread through the needle, and then before I get going, I just test it to make sure, is the bead going to go through the needle, before I get myself frustrated with things that don't work.